A warm welcome to the first video edition of Sightgeist, the Saxony magazine. For many years, Sightgeist has delighted its audience in printed form. Now we've tried to take it to a new level, and we hope that we have succeeded. But judge for yourself. Here's what you will find in today's edition. Let's get started. Today's Dresden State art collections were established by Saxon ruler Augustus in 1560. It was another Augustus, Augustus the Strong, who divided up the so-called art chamber into specialist collections. Recently, the collections of paintings predating the year 1800 and the corresponding sculptures have moved in together and developed an intense and harmonious relationship. This is the so-called Semper building or Semper Gallery, which is the home of Dresden's famous Old Masters Picture Gallery and Sculpture collection up to 1800. It was reopened in 2020 after extensive renovation and with a brand new concept. I will have a chance to talk to Dr. Stefan Koja, the director of the museum. Let me start with something that has made headlines recently. Today, only 37 works of famous painter Johannes or Jan Vermeer are known to exist. 2 of them are owned by the Dresden State Art Collections. One is the girl reading a letter at an open window, which has been restored recently. During the restoration process, the depiction of a cupid on the wall behind the girl was uncovered, altering the character of the painting substantially. So, in a way, the museum now presents a new Vermeer. Dr. Koja, could you please tell me why the decision was taken?
Our intention first was just to clean the painting because it had a varnish that was yellowed. But in doing so, we realized that there was a overpaint in the background that was not by Vermeer's hand, but by someone else several decades later. So the evidence was so obvious that we really could decide to take off this overpaint, and we found the cupid, which enhances the meaning of the entire painting. In general, people have been enthusiastic about the result of this restoration. Of course, some have to overcome what they were used to, because they were used to the flat background, which served like a projection place for individual thoughts or dreams, or whatever. But now the composition is so much more convincing than it was before. And also in terms of colorism, the painting has become much richer than it used to be before.
The Old Masters Picture Gallery is ranked among the best collections of its kind in the world. What makes it so special?
It's the richness of these collections. They're especially strong in Italian painting from the Renaissance to the late Baroque. There are also exceptional holdings of painters like Lucas Cranach and his son. There are more than 40. There is a pastel cabinet which is unique in the world. There are 36 Bellottos showing Dresden, Pirna and the surroundings. And there is an antiquity collection here, which is also outstanding north of the Alps.
The Semper building, named after its architect Gottfried Semper, who also designed Dresden's famous opera house, was renovated for 7 years. Would you have wished for a new exhibition building instead?
No, I think the building is spectacular. It's really a masterpiece of architecture.
Could you please explain the new exhibition concept?
What we try to do is that to light the paintings in a way that they approach you. So as a visitor, you don't have to look for them, they come to you. And in all the presentation, we try to explain by juxtaposing, by showing interesting conversations, so to say, between paintings, but also between paintings and sculpture. So in many ways, or in many instances, you don't have to read, you just see what's meant.
The museums of the Dresden State Art Collections are fantastic, both in terms of quality and quantity, so that visitors are spoiled for choice. Do you have to compete?
I think with this museum we don't have to compete with others, because the old masters, they really lay the ground for the art to come.
How do you see the future?
I think the aura of the artwork is always attractive, and this fascination is something we can always rely on and work with. But of course it's our duty to make them approachable, to explain them well, to make them come to life.
Could you please show us 5 of your favorite works on display now and explain why you like them so much?
One of them, of course, is the Sistine Madonna. It's such a masterwork because on the one hand it has this very clear structure. You can read it from 100 meters apart, and at the same time it has a very deep meaning to it. Raphael, he made it a reflection on the passion of Christ. The Venus by Giorgione and Titian is one of the most famous paintings of art history. It was begun by Giorgione, who was a very original artist who invented a number of new genres of painting, like La Belladonna, for example, or in this case, it's the first large nude of Venetian Renaissance. Giorgione died of the plague, and the young Titian continued and finished the painting. Balthasar Permoser, who was the sculptor to the king, to Augustus the Strong, he was a genius in using stone that would enhance the meaning of his sculpture. And you have to realize that the ground is nearly white or has bright tones, and then it has these inclusions of red that really show the blood of Christ tortured at the flagellation. And the outline of the sculpture is really expressionistic in a way, because you can feel the suffering of Christ by just looking at this curved outline. And when you look at the back of the sculpture, it's fascinating to see how old Permoser was, because he added a self-portrait, and he says Balthasar Permoser did it in his 77th year. So you have to imagine this genius producing such an exceptional piece at this age of his life. At the time when it was acquired, it was called the most beautiful pastel ever seen. And what's exceptional about this pastel is the fact that she's a servant. And in this sense, it's completely modern, because at the time, a servant wouldn't have been the object of a depiction. And the quality of rendering, for example, the glass of water or the Meissen cup, is so enormous that many other pastel painters would come and study this special work. And the king was so proud that he could acquire the Chocolate Girl by Jean-Etienne Lyotard. They had a special frame carved for it, and this frame is full with attributes of female interests. So you see there is a necklace, there is a mirror, there's a purse, you see a fan, you see a knitting set, and there are flowers. And so the frame in itself is also really a work of art. And we are lucky because the entire collection was framed for the new museum, which was opened in 1746. And also this is one of the exceptional qualities of this collection, that you have this ensemble of gilded frames of the time. The Sieur de Moret was a man from the Piedmont, and he was ambassador to Henry VIII. And Holbein is especially famous for depicting hands. This is one of the details that make him discernible from other painters. But it's also this firm look out of the painting that still fascinates every visitor, and the detail of every surface are unsurpassed. And inside, Gottfried Semper tried to give it the splendor of a royal collection. It's like a palace for a royal collection. So we were very glad to have this building because it really enhances the paintings.
The building itself is indeed also a piece of art. Gottfried Semper was inspired by Venetian palaces from the Renaissance period. His credo was to build highly functional building, but, like he called it, dressed beautifully. Nothing less would have done for the artwork on display here, which can now be admired even more here at Dresden's Theatre Square. I was fortunate enough to be invited to the official opening in March 2020, and I cannot tell you how impressed I was. Of course, I saw the previous incarnations as well as all the interims. The presentation was good at all stages, but it has now been elevated to an entirely new level. The Moritzburg Festival is considered to be one of the best chamber music festivals in the world. But there's more to it. The location is just a stone's throw away from Dresden, but it offers its own charm and beauty. We were allowed to take a look behind the scenes of a festival that speaks for itself.
Moritzburg Festival has been known for a while, and there are many incredible musicians coming. So of course the younger musicians, they're looking at who's appearing at the festival, they would like to be in touch with those musicians.
It's a festival that really stands in the landscape of German music culture with a lot of confidence, and it's a very healthy organization.
Actually, it's a unification of all different mentalities and cultures coming together to make music, which I find so inspiring every year.
I think it's amazing for people to come here and see all these intrinsical qualities of Saxon music making, but mixed with other nationalities, and that's, I think, unique.
Every year and every concert is sold out, and they truly love what we do, and we love them too.
My brother Kai and I, we went to Marlborough, to Vermont in America, where there was really a fantastic chamber music festival founded by immigrants from Europe. And we loved the summer, the nature, the chamber music together with wonderful colleagues, famous players from the music scene, and very young, the best young players from all over the world. So the idea got stuck with us, and when we came back after 4 summers in Marlborough, I said, I want to do something similar. So we started, and we had to jumpstart because we could use our contacts to the Marlborough Music Festival to get the best young players, even without money in the first few years, because we didn't pay, but we would refund, flight money and pay for the hotel.
We started the music festival many years ago, and we were all then youngsters, like how the academy students are, and many years have passed. So we thought, okay, it's about time that we help the next generation and perhaps the following generations to come, and young musicians to have a chance to perform and to learn from the older musicians or famous or more experienced musicians, to have the exchange.
It's a crazy selection process. I mean, people have to apply for it. And we get lots of applications. I think this year were more than 800 applications, and they are interested in coming here. And you know, it's interesting because, for example, this year we had 141 flutes applying for 2 positions.
So that's a lot of people to really to go through and to choose from, which is really great. And they really included so many different nations, which we are very proud of.
So, you know, to decide just from videos and from YouTubes and from all the information that they send, who of these 142 are allowed to come here, it's not an easy task.
Well, Moritzburg offers a very special opportunity for people to connect and for music to connect with people, and sort of all these connections to happen within the very sort of idyllic setting. I mean, there's a beautiful castle.
And then I just really wanted to do concerts and play with people, and I found this could be the perfect opportunity, so I just applied again.
The Academy brings together, I think, 16 different nations. So then it's really something special because you have all these different energies uniting, and then the 2 distinct groups of the Festival and Academy coming together in unity.
In my time, at 2021, you were not ready to go to a chamber music festival. You still had to learn your instrument more in detail. People were not mature enough. Now, at 2021, they already know a lot of the literature.
First year I just turned 19, and so I was meeting these, you know, very famous people in the music world, and so playing with them was very, you know,
Intimidating.
We also provide the kids with you know, such a nice living situation. They all eat together, they rehearse together, they really experience the life being together. That actually gives a certain feeling to the people to work together, to play together, because since once you know the person, you can play the music together so much better than not knowing anyone.
The most beautiful thing is really the friendship and the family atmosphere. Together with our festival team, who also belong to the family, and we all come together for the same cause. That's the most wonderful thing.
It's very interesting to meet them when they arrive here, you know, usually on Saturday night. We meet them and we already play the pieces once from the beginning to the end, just to check, you know, what do we have here, you know. And then, you know, from next morning we start working, you know, lots of hours.
I mean, this is a region that could rely on itself, even musically. They could just have the local musicians and make something very special still.
This castle is really just kind of symbolic of a festival and a festive atmosphere.
You know, it's only a 20-minute drive from Dresden, and it's sort of close to everything, but also it's isolated in a way. So that's very special, and I think it offers a unique atmosphere for the festival to take place.
The audience makes a huge difference for the performers and also to the concerts, because they've been here for so many years and they are true fans of the festival, and they start to know our names because after many years always keep coming back, and they travel far. They are not only from the locals, they really travel far from different places to here, and only for Moritzburg Music Festival. Of course, they see the Academy students, they're so excited because everyone wants to help the young, and it's such a positive energy for everybody.
And we see the audience coming to the concert, and when they are leaving, they all have these glowing eyes and smiles on their faces, and we think we give so much joy to people and to ourselves too, to our colleagues. We transfer so much knowledge to younger generations that I really feel each time during the festival that it's extremely important, and that it's a great pleasure to have this festival. And I think it will even survive us at some point, and we'll be hopefully there still in 100 years.
So much talent in one place. And yet, just a gathering of human beings united in their love for music and their willingness to share it with their audience. If you think that classical musicians live in a world of their own, think again. At Moritzburg, you can get closer to them than you expect. Apart from the high quality of the music performed there, this is what makes the festival so special. The French word briquette, which means small brick, entered the German language in the 19th century, first as a humorous description for the lunch boxes of miners. Later, it became almost synonymous with pressed lignite, used for heating and cooking purposes. Near the Saxon town of Hoyerswerda, a former briquette factory has been converted into a spectacular museum. What is known today as Knappenrode started in 1913 as a settlement for the workers of a newly erected factory which made briquettes from local lignite or brown coal. This was harvested by open pit mining, also known as strip mining. The new settlement was named Vermeer after the Director General of the company which ran the operation. It was renamed in 1950 because the communists didn't like the fact that the settlement had been named after a capitalist. They ignored the fact that Josef Vermeer had been a highly respected individual. He had spent the last years of his life in Dresden, where his villa still stands today. But anyway, the new name made sense because it was Knappen, which are miners, who cleared Rode, Knappenrode, the forests to make space for the new settlement. Before World War II, the factory was the most modern of its kind in Germany. Production of briquettes carried on until 1993. 1 year later, parts of the factory were reopened as a museum, known today as Energiefabrik Knappenrode, which means Knappenrode Energy Factory. Recently, the museum has been completely refurbished and a new permanent exhibition has been created, which does not only look at the past, but also into the future. Let's have a look. This is where the coal arrived, and with a system of conveyor belts, 1/3 of it was brought to the boiler house because it was needed to run the machines, and the other coal was brought into the factory to make briquettes. This is amazing. It's a decommissioned jet engine mounted on a locomotive which was used to blow away the snow from the tracks in winter. I'm going to meet Sophia, who was part of the team which developed and realized the new exhibition concept. Hello Sophia, how are you?
Hello Wolfgang, I'm well.
Tell me, what's this? It looks like it has play value.
It definitely does. This is our experimental table that shows different kinds of energy, like wind or solar energy, and you can explore in a playful way options and what kind of impact they have on society, on the economy, and on the environment as well.
Oh, that's interesting. And we haven't even started in the exhibition area, have we?
No, we're not there yet. So let's have a look.
Okay, great. Come.
So here you see, as the time is turning backwards, we start our time travel back into the past. Long way up, yes.
Yeah, it is. Hope it's worth it.
Definitely. I'll show you around. So here in this area there are 7 sieves that would sieve the coal when it just first comes into the factory, and everything that's not small enough to go through there falls into this overrun and down into some mills. So here the actual drying process started. The coal would come in here on this conveyor belt and then drop over here into a bunker. Since the coal at this point was still wet, it had the tendency to adhere to the walls of the bunker. So the workers had to use these long poles to scrape it off the wall. And one of these poles is as heavy as this package of gold. You want to try?
Oh! How much is it?
It's 25 kilos.
25 kilos. Whoa.
The lignite in rosacea is usually very wet. It has a content of 60 to 70% of water, and that is way too wet to burn it. Each of these dryers is 12 meters high, and it would take the coal about 20 minutes to move from up there to down here. So because there was such a high risk of fires in here, in this oven house, they had to regularly spray down everything with water to clean it from the dust, the coal dust. So they would wash the machines and the floors and everything. And considering that it was 70 degrees in here in the summertime.
Celsius.
Celsius, exactly. They would sometimes even make some water fights with the water hoses.
Wow, that's impressive. What's this all about?
These are the steam-run presses that produce the briquettes. Here you have another view into a press hall. These presses are not run on steam, but on electricity. That's why they look a little different than the other ones.
For a very long time, lignite mining secured the livelihood of the inhabitants of this region. And it also changed the landscape. But after German reunification, a transformation process started, sometimes painful, but also exciting. There's no better place to witness the change than here in Knappenrode. Not so long ago, briquettes were part of our daily lives. But the times are definitely changing, all the times. And yet I believe that there's no future without the past. And history can teach us a lot about where we are and where we are going to. Are we moving towards a world where virtual experiences are more important than real ones? Who can tell? But who says that they cannot be combined to great effect? A good example is the new Dresden Xperience, which is actually two attractions under one umbrella, both enhanced by modern technology. I have an appointment with Dr. Christian Striefler. He's the managing director of Schlösserland Saxon. That's the association of state-owned palaces, castles and gardens. Two of these are the Dresden Zwinger and what is called Dresden Fortress. Interestingly enough, both have to do with the former fortifications of Dresden. 10 years ago, Dr. Striefler had an idea which has manifested itself now in two new attractions. And I'm going to talk to him about it. Let's see what he has to say. So, the result is called Dresden Xperience.
Yes,
it consists of the Festung or Fortress Experience and the Zwinger Experience. One is what we today call the Dresden Fortress, the remains of the fortifications along the Elbe River, and the other is the Dresden Zwinger, which also sits on a former bastion of the fortifications. What was the original idea and what inspired you?
Long time ago I asked myself, there are so many visitors walking over the terrace, over the fortress, the oldest part of Dresden, or walking here inside in the Zwinger, but they really get nothing to know about what was inside, about the stories, about the history. And then I asked myself, how can we change that? And we decided, of course, with an external company to go on a very special way where we take beamers and 3D acoustic system and so on, and so we can tell digital stories.
So, shall we go inside?
Yes, of course.
Oh, what's this all about?
This looks a bit artificial, but you see, these are symbols. Symbols for the big questions people have about the Zwinger. And at all these pieces, yeah, you get information via a very, very sophisticated audio guide. It's a 3D audio guide. Inside in the Zwinger, there were in the 18th century more than 1,000 orange trees. And these are not only a wonderful atmosphere, a Mediterranean atmosphere, it's also a symbol for power and a symbol for wealthiness. Mm-hmm. You know, it was very, very expensive to buy these and to keep them. Now we enter one of the maybe most important things of all this. This is the wedding of the century. It happens in 1719, and the son of August the Strong has married at that time, in September 1719, the Princess of Habsburg.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It looks so interesting. It looks like straight out of a fantasy novel. The dresses, what does it mean? Why are they looking like the sun? Is it like, is it the sun?
There are the four elements. The city was full with all the dukes from all other countries and the kings and princesses, and so these are all the people. And at the end there was a big firework. Yeah.
Wow, that's something completely different now. What is this all about?
Yes, in fact, now you sit here and you put your virtual reality glasses on, and then you can pedal through the Zwinger.
Okay, let's take a ride, and then I'm looking forward to going to the Festung or Fortress experience with you.
Really? Okay, yeah.
Now, luck's on my side, 17. You can't beat that.
Now we're here in the Festung experience or Fortress experience. Dr. Striefler, is it the same concept as in the Zwinger experience, or are there any differences?
It's a little bit different. We are now here in the oldest part of Dresden, the old fortress, and here are so many stories inside, with a very, very new, sophisticated audio system, and also with more than 40 high-quality laser beamers.
Sounds like it's also bigger.
It's bigger, of course, it's bigger. It's more than 1,000 square meters over here. The sound will guide you. That's the concept.
Oh, it comes on automatically, basically?
It comes automatically. Wherever you are, you get the special tone, the special sound directly for the position where you are located in.
Wow. I can see everything is much bigger here, like you said, and that opens up possibilities for much larger visuals and more effects.
Yeah, that's one of the plans we have had here. We want to show the stories inside, and here, for example, you see the manufacture of the balls for the cannons.
Oh, wow. It's so loud here.
Yeah, that's very authentic. Like in the old fortress.
You can literally hear the firing of the cannons.
Yes, hear the firing of the cannon.
Well, I must say, I feel really immersed, and I want to thank you for taking your time to showing me through the two experiences.
Yeah.
And
it was a pleasure.
Yeah,
it
great.
was a pleasure.
For me too, absolutely. A visit to Dresden has always been a great experience, but the Dresden Experience has added greatly to the Dresden Experience. Let us now take a brief look into what else is new and coming up in Saxony. Here's Sightgeist's Kaleidoscope. The distinctive Rakot's Bridge in the Cromlau Park, also known internationally as the Devil's Bridge, has been reopened to the public after extensive renovation. It forms a full circle with its reflection in the water. As the next step in the reconstruction of Dresden's royal palace after destruction in World War II, the interior of the long corridor has regained its original appearance and serves once again as the home of the impressive firearms collection of the Dresden State Art Collections. Leipzig-born Richard Wagner will be celebrated in his birthplace when in summer 2022 all of his 13 operas will be performed in chronological order in the Leipzig Opera House, embedded in a festival which will last 3 weeks. In 2022, the Moravian Church will celebrate its 300th anniversary in its birthplace, the Saxon town of Herrnhut. Founded by Count Nicholas Ludwig von Zinzendorf and Protestant refugees, it established itself in many other countries, and it is also well known for the Moravian stars. The Mendelssohn House in Leipzig is the only museum dedicated to the famous musician, composer and conductor in an authentic location. It will celebrate its 25th anniversary in 2022, which coincides with Mendelssohn's 175th death anniversary. Sitting on top of the Schellenberg mountain, the imposing Augustusburg Castle is also known as the Crown of the Ore Mountains. Built in the Renaissance style by Saxon ruler Augustus in the 16th century, it will celebrate its 450th anniversary in 2022. Many people consider the Raten open-air stage, which will reopen in 2022 after extensive renovation, the most beautiful of Europe. This is not surprising, since it is embedded into the mighty rock formations of the Bastei, a highlight of the Saxon Switzerland National Park. Venetian painter Bernardo Bellotto, also known as Canaletto, created the famous Vedutas of Dresden, which established how the city is still seen today. His 300th birthday will be celebrated in style in 2022, not only in Saxony's capital, but also in Pirna and at Königstein Fortress, two other places he portrayed in great detail. Welcome back to more stories from Saxony. Millions lost their lives under the Nazi rule, and it came with a great loss of culture as well. Take Jewish culture, for example. Luckily, there are still Jewish communities in Leipzig, Dresden and Chemnitz. And now there's hope that Jewish life might prosper once again in Görlitz, a town with a great Jewish heritage. Görlitz, has just over 50,000 inhabitants, but also 4,000 buildings protected by the National List of Monuments, making it for many people the most beautiful town of Germany. The town is located about 100 kilometers or 60 miles east of Dresden. One of the protected buildings is the former synagogue. It is one of only a few in Germany who survived the Nazi times. It has recently reopened as a cultural center after many years of decay and subsequent restoration. It's a great pleasure for me to meet here Dr. Markus Bauer, the head of an association who promoted the restoration of the synagogue. How do you feel about it, that it's finally done?
Es ist ein Gefühl tiefer Genugtuung.
It is a feeling of great satisfaction and joy. For over 20 years we have been working towards this day when the synagogue can open again and present itself as it used to be, in all its magnificence and beauty. It represents the newly found self-assurance of the Jewish community in Görlitz in a very special way. For many years they were outsiders, tolerated rather than cherished or accepted. That only changed at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. And it is bringing back the Jewish heritage of Görlitz, which is a very important element. We are standing in the central hall, in the domed hall of the synagogue. This is the main room in which the congregation gathered. Down here in the lower area is where the men had their place, while the women sat up there in the gallery. And in front of us, in the inner sanctum, so to speak, the Torah shrine. It is open now. You can see that here, at least in the main section, it is no longer an active synagogue. Really, the shrine should hold a Torah scroll.
Die Architektur, die sich hier zeigt,
the architecture we see here is a synthesis of traditional decorative and architectural elements that evolved in synagogues in the 19th century and new architectural ideas.
und neuen Bauideen.
I know this is only one of the rooms. Shall we have a look at the other rooms?
With pleasure.
Das ist
This is the former meeting hall where the synagogue leaders met. The room is used now above all for school classes who come here to learn about the history of the building and the Jewish community.
Ja, das ist nun ein Raum.
This is a room that means a lot to us. It is the former weekday synagogue. This room has now been furnished as a smaller, separate synagogue, a prayer room used for this purpose only.
Zwecke dient. Hier werden sich Juden versammeln.
And in fact, a first service was held here shortly after it opened, the first since 1938.
Zum ersten Mal seit 1938.
So why was the synagogue not destroyed?
Wir wissen es nicht genau.
We don't know exactly. What is true is that in the so-called Crystal Night, when almost all synagogues in Germany were destroyed, there was an arson attack on the synagogue in Görlitz. But the fire brigade came and put it out.
Warum die Feuerwehr das gemacht hat?
It is not clear why the fire brigade did this. Whether there was a brave fireman who ignored the order to let the synagogue burn, or whether this order was not properly communicated, we don't know.
Das wissen wir nicht. Wir wünschen uns
We hope very much that it was a brave fireman who saved the synagogue of Görlitz.
When textile merchant Otto Straßburg erected this building with a passage in 1907-1908, he was accused of megalomania. After all, comparable buildings can only be found in large cities. But Görlitz was a boom town. And Otto Straßburg was also praised for giving his customers what they wanted. Large and bright storerooms and a great variety of merchandise presented in a beautiful Art Nouveau setting. Otto Straßburg donated rugs and carpets for the synagogue, showing how much pride the citizens of Görlitz took in the newly erected symbol of Jewish life in Görlitz. The Paul Otto is one of the small boutique hotels in Görlitz. In the cellars you can find a water basin which served as a mikvah, a Jewish ritual bath in the Middle Ages. It is open to the public every day. After a plague epidemic in 1389, Jews had to leave town and were only allowed to settle again in 1847, after which Jewish life in Görlitz prospered again. Synagogue means house of gathering. The first synagogue in Görlitz after the Middle Ages was established in 1847 in this building, in the backyard of a hotel, which had served as a theater before. When the new synagogue was opened in 1911, it became a storage and workshop for the new theater of Görlitz. Today it serves as House of Literature and it keeps the Jewish heritage of Görlitz alive, making it once again a house of gathering. I'm going to meet Rainer Michel, whose family owns this building today.
Nice to meet you. This is the front of the old synagogue, and I know from the old documents that there was an inscription saying, "Build me a house and I will live in it." It's taken from the Bible, and we will reconstruct it. And those books are important because they document how many important authors were here and how they influenced not just Görlitz, but Austria, Jerusalem, and the Netherlands.
This is the former textile store of the Toczek family, established in 1868. It thrived, and in 1893 it was very beautifully decorated for the visit of the German emperor. And it is said that he really stopped by and did some shopping. Also shows how well the Toczek family was integrated into the Görlitz society. Like almost all the Jewish families who saw themselves as good and loyal Germans. None of them expected that their fellow citizens would turn against them in such a deadly way just a few decades later. Martin Ephraim was probably Görlitz's most generous philanthropist. He donated money for the Upper Lusatia Hall of Fame, today the Dom Kultury or House of Culture, in the eastern parts of Görlitz on the other side of the Neiße River, which now form the Polish town of Görlitz. He also promoted the Silesian Music Festival and he gifted the first art exhibits to the Görlitz Museum. In 1909, he and his family moved into this impressive, newly erected villa. Sadly, Martin Ephraim died in Terezin in 1944. The Ephraim Villa was later turned into a youth hostel, which was considered to be the most beautiful in the GDR. Today, it is still open for overnight stays. The Jewish cemetery was established in the mid-19th century and used regularly until 1934, when the Jewish citizens of Görlitz either fled, emigrated to other countries, or sadly were deported and killed. Attempts to destroy the cemetery luckily failed. Only the metal parts were removed.
This is the tomb of the family Alexander Katz. They endowed the land for the new synagogue in Görlitz, for example, and many things for the museum.
Very interesting. Shall we have a walk around?
Yeah. This is the oldest burial ground in the cemetery, and you can see that the early graves are still inscribed in Hebrew on the front with the German translation on the back. These Hebrew inscriptions are disappearing from year to year, and you have to really search to find them at all on later graves.
And that was a sign that they had assimilated into the German society.
Yeah. You have to imagine that none of the families buried here have descendants living in Görlitz. What we are looking at here are history books. It is hard to estimate the loss that the city of Görlitz has experienced from the persecution of the Jews. Unlike other Jewish cemeteries, this one in Görlitz is open every day, except on the Shabbat, of course, and all visitors are welcome.
Thank you. It was very, very interesting, and all the best to you until next time.
Thank you.
In 1948, only 5 Jews remained in Görlitz. Since then, the cemetery has been administered by the Jewish community of Dresden. One of the Görlitz-born Jewish authors was Mira Lobe, who became famous for her children's books. In 1972, she published Little I Am Me. In this book, a cuddly toy creature tries to find out what it is, arriving at the conclusion that it is what it is. We are all similar to each other and yet different, and being different should never again become a reason to be discriminated, excluded, and persecuted. Thus, the reopened synagogue in Görlitz is a treasure from the past as well as an investment into a better future. The future for Leipzig, Saxony's largest city, is looking bright. Leipzig has experienced a boom in recent years and the population has grown steadily. It has become the place to be, particularly for 20-somethings and upcoming artists. We've accompanied Jana and her friends Julia and Johanna on an outing in and around Leipzig's trendy Plagwitz district. Leipzig has been dubbed New Berlin or Leipzig. Both terms are not popular with the Leipzigers, and the mayor has clearly stated, "We are Leipzig." Did you know that the average consumption of beer in Germany is the highest in, no, not Bavaria, Saxony? Bad luck for me. I am German, but I don't drink beer. A sentence that tends to confuse a lot of people. Luckily, wine has been grown in Saxony for more than 850 years. So it was a great pleasure to accompany one of the cellarers of the Saxon State Winery at Wackerbarth Castle. Right at the outskirts of Dresden, the town of Radebeul can be found today. But there was nothing much here in the 18th century. What Imperial Count August Christoph von Wackerbarth had in mind was a tranquil spot for his retirement. Around 1727, construction of a small palace with gardens surrounded by vineyards started. Wackerbarth intended to spend the remaining years of his life here, far away from the hustle and bustle of the court in Dresden, where he'd forged himself a remarkable career under Saxony's most splendid ruler, Augustus the Strong. Wackerbarth moved into what he called Wackerbarth's Rest in 1730, but he died soon afterwards, having had little time to enjoy the beautiful scenery. Afterwards, the estate served for various purposes. In 1952, it became a winery, which then evolved into the Wackerbarth Castle Saxon State Winery after German reunification. Instead of making products for the masses, the winery refocused on their own vineyards and high-quality wine products. In 1979, the Bussard Winery was taken over, Germany's second oldest producer of sparkling wine. Back in 1836, 3 proprietors of wine-growing estates here in Radebeul had realized that their wine grows under similar conditions than the wine in the Champagne region in France. They brought in a cellarer from Reims and started making sparkling wine. Under the brands of Bussard and Wackerbarth, exquisite sparkling wines are still made here today. And I have the honor to meet present-day cellarer Jürgen Aumüller. And I want to find out if he does more than sipping sparkling wine all day round.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. What a beautiful day in a very beautiful place. It must be a dream to work as a cellarer at Wackerbarth Castle Saxon State Winery. So for how long have you been doing this job?
I've been here at Wackerbarth for 20 years and have the great pleasure of making sparkling wine here.
I know you're in charge of the sparkling wine. So what made you come here and start this job?
I came and looked at the place, at its tradition and history, its fantastic position, the wonderful vineyards. Simply being able to make sparkling wine from them is pure pleasure. So I said, okay, I want to come here. I want to make sparkling wine here.
This saves you from going to the gym, I see, because it's pretty steep here.
Yes, you're right. After you've spent all day walking through the vineyards, you notice it in the evening. And it keeps you fit.
How much of your time do you spend among the vines?
Quite a lot at the moment. I currently spend almost 90% of my time in the vineyard. I have to look at how the grapes are maturing, how they are looking, how healthy they are, how they taste, simply to catch the right moment to pick them in order to make perfect wines and sparkling wines. We can carry on from here to the production facilities. Then I can show you how we process the grapes after they have been harvested.
With pleasure.
Then follow me.
So, this is the wine cellar?
That's right. With these classical wooden casks and with our riddling rack, where the sparkling wine bottles are stored. They have to be riddled or twisted every day for 24 days until the yeast gathers in the neck of the bottle. After that, it is ready to be disgorged.
Wow, 24 days!
When the yeast has gathered down here at the bottom, the bottle neck is frozen. And this process, when the yeast comes out, is called disgorging. After that, the expedition liquor is added, the bottle is corked, and the sparkling wine is more or less ready. It is stored again for 3 months to allow it to mature, and then it goes on sale.
Your sparkling wine is made like champagne?
Champagne is a protected region in France, and only sparkling wine made there can be called champagne. We use the same method, which is called bottle fermentation.
Could you show us how riddling is done?
Yes,
of course, with pleasure. You take the bottle, lift it slightly, and put it back in place after a quarter turn. Lift, riddle, quarter turn, and so on. In real time, it looks like this.
I can see you have experience.
Yes, if you do it 20,000 times a day together with colleagues, you get a certain routine.
The bottles have a very special shape.
That's right. It's a Lösnitz bottle or Saxony club. It was invented around 100 years ago. When you see this bottle, you can be sure that the grapes in it are 100% from Saxony.
Why are we drinking sparkling wine from a wine glass?
We can drink it from a champagne glass later, but for now we use a wine glass. This is the first time it has been poured. That means it is bottled and leaves the bottle for the first time after 4 years. On that note,
in diesem Sinne.
That was really interesting. Thanks for your wonderful insight into your work. So, don't want to take more of your time. See you next time here at Wackerbarth Castle Saxon State Winery.
Thank you very much, and see you. Bye.
Bye. Wine and sparkling wine tours are offered every day. There's also tours of the vineyards. After all, they form part of the Saxon wine hiking route. In the shop, not only Wackerbarth products are on offer, but also a fine selection of wines from other Saxon vintners. And the Belvedere is probably the most popular place to get married in Saxony. So there are lots of reasons to raise a glass. Cheers! Saxony's most splendid ruler, Augustus the Strong, is said to have consumed 2 to 3 bottles of wine every day. Maybe this is just one of the many tales which are told about him, but definitely the stuff that legends are made of. So do not miss the upcoming first special edition of Sightgeist, the Saxony magazine, where we will take a look at this legendary ruler and visit all the fantastic places and things that he left behind. Much was lost in the destruction of the royal palace in Dresden at the end of World War II, which has been rebuilt since 1985. Reconstruction is a fairly easy task, but reimagination is more challenging. We decided to take a look at something that will become a new attraction, but is still a work in progress. Exciting, nevertheless. Dresden's royal palace was first mentioned in the year 1289. The original medieval castle had been erected to protect the bridge across the Elbe River. At around 1400, it became the residence of the Saxon rulers, then called the Margraves of Meissen. After these rulers had evolved into the electors of Saxony, now having the privilege of electing the German emperor, it got expanded into a splendid palace in the middle of the 16th century. In spite of many more changes afterwards, the Renaissance character from that time has been well preserved. Destroyed in World War II, the royal palace has been under reconstruction since 1985. This is the large palace yard, which is like a project of its own. I'm going to talk to Holger Krause, who's the project manager in charge of the reconstruction of the royal palace, and to Matthias Zahn, who's in charge of the restoration.
There are 3 courtyards in Dresden's royal palace. The main courtyard is also the most impressive, with architecture dating back to the Renaissance.
Is its condition the same as before the war?
No. After the entire palace complex had been destroyed in the Second World War, the opportunity opened up to rebuild it in the original architectural style. A lot of alterations had been made to the facade that were also destroyed, so that it was suddenly possible to reconstruct it as it was in the Renaissance. Over the decades, the idea took hold that rebuilding the palace in this way was the best and most convincing option.
Looking around, the facade really is very unusual. What kind of design is it?
Yes, the sgraffitos and frescoes in the loggia are very special. Again, we have a process here that is unlike anything else. It has a magnetism that the Saxon rulers at the time wanted and experienced themselves, and that visitors will be able to see again in the future.
What is shown here on the facade?
We have a lot of antiquity here, Roman and Greek antiquity. On the southern side we have a lot of the Old Testament. They are motifs that have been used again and again in art history over the centuries.
Thank you for this wonderful introduction. Next, I will meet Mr. Zahn.
I hope you enjoy the Royal Palace and thank you for being here.
Herr Zahn. Mr. Zahn, you talk of showing the palace courtyard in a new light. That's a good way of putting it. Why is this necessary?
Die Malereien und Fassadengestaltung.
The murals and facade design date back to the mid-16th century and lasted around 200 years, at least until 1701, when there was a fire in the eastern wing, where we are now standing.
Flügel, in dem wir uns auch befinden.
This fire partially damaged the embellishments on the facades and they gradually disappeared. But the facade designs were an important part of the palace as built by Elector Moritz in around 1550.
Fürst Moritz 1550.
His intention was to present himself in political, religious and moral terms. But there is not sufficient evidence to be able to call it a reconstruction. We have tried to approximate on a scale of 1 to 10 what might have been depicted. The motives are familiar. At the top, the Queen of Sheba in front of Solomon. On this floor above, all the adoration of the Magi with the infant Jesus and Mary. And down here, the conversion of St. Paul. We evaluated these engravings and drawings. The paintings were done by Italians in around 1550 who came from Brescia. We even went there and saw paintings from the era that still exist.
How close do you think you are to the original?
First of all, the iconography is extremely important. It allows us to explain what people believed in, what was known and discussed in the intellectual circles at the time. And we can show the reformer Martin Luther's ideas as well. Because Moritz was a Protestant and wanted to present his new faith, he was instrumental in advancing Protestantism throughout Germany politically. The loggia itself is the highlight of the courtyard in terms of design and iconography. So I think that the themes here were also ones he identified with.
What is happening here exactly?
This is the so-called Gothic Hall, parts of which still date back to the late Gothic period in the palace.
Hier im Schloss existieren. Also hier beginnen die wissenschaftlichen.
This is where we start our scientific and preparatory work. These are the drawings and paintings that we made on a smaller scale for the model. We'll cross now to the palace chapel where the large-scale work is being done.
Gemacht werden können.
Wow, that's huge.
These are the frescoes on paper on a scale of 1 to 1. We only use a few colors or pigments. We have just 9 different hues in total that we use for the entire painting. Of course, they are light-fast and lime-proof because they are painted directly onto the fresh plastering.
In den frischen Putz hineingemalt werden.
We paint for 10 to 13 hours a day outside on the facade. Painting frescoes is extremely hard physical work. Even back in the 16th century, it was said that you had to be relatively fit and healthy to paint frescoes like this.
Freskal auch auszuführen.
Does that also mean you can only work in the warmer months? Does temperature have an influence?
We discovered here that it is much more difficult to paint when it's colder. We use the time from May to October to do the work.
How hard is it to paint in the Renaissance style?
First, we studied the source material. What written material exists? We also researched by looking at the paintings on site. Plenty of restoration studies have been conducted since, for example in the Sistine Chapel, also involving scientists.
Und danach orientieren wir uns.
We use them as a guide. Then we painted the scenes on cardboard, took them with us to Italy and held them up next to the originals to see where the differences are and how we can improve our work. We also chose the colors based on the colors used there.
That's quite an effort. It's very impressive to see what you're doing to make it as authentic as possible.
Yes, of course. Otherwise it wouldn't be convincing.
I can't wait for the reconstruction of the Royal Palace to be completed. Most of it is already done though. The Royal Palace is like a destination of its own, with its impressive architecture, beautiful original rooms and modern museum spaces for some of the best museums in the world, those of the Dresden State Art Collections. So come and see for yourself and then come back later to see what has been added. would like to thank everyone involved in this project. The very first video edition of Sightgeist, the Saxony magazine. And I would like to thank you for tuning in. Your feedback is appreciated. Do not miss Sightgeist's video advent calendar and join me again for the special edition on Augustus the Strong and his splendor. See you soon and have a splendid day.